Welcome back, folks. This is Texas Tales, the official podcast of Texas Saltwater Fishing Magazine. I am your host, Joshua Shive, and I have my co host with me, Mr. James Cossum. James, what is happening this week?
Oh, I did a little duck hunting to wrap up season this weekend. That was exciting, and man, it's cold. God, brutal out there.
Yeah, I would hope that it would have pushed something in with the cold that came. So hopefully there was a lot more ducks around the coast than I guess what there has been.
Well, I was actually hunting little local ponds with the ice. I didn't venture too far out, and I'm not a duck hunter. Like I said, I've made that case 1,000 times. I shoot ducks. I'm not a duck hunter, and we had a local tank that was just full of birds, and it had everything. A couple pintails, looked like a couple canvasbacks on there, and I shot the one what I was pretty confident was a mallard hen, and it is the biggest female gadwall I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah, I was almost certain she had to be a mallard, and I got her on the ground. I was like, "Oh, no, it's just a big gadwall," but it was still a lot of fun.
Hey, and I don't know if it's just like a speculatory thing or what people are saying, but have you noticed a drop in the numbers year over
Oh,
year?
yeah, absolutely. Even the local we have some wood ducks that stay year round on the creek down the way, and I was talking to it's a local farmer and rancher that lets me just slip down there about once a year and go shoot some wood ducks, and I told him like I've been hunting this place like 6 years now. I have found birds down there for the first 4 years, and this is not over harvesting. It's 10, 15 birds, and I'll take a drake, maybe 2. And the last 2 years, there hasn't been a single one. And I mean, it is just they seem decimated. And even when we first moved to our place we live on now, the first year we lived here, we had a flock of pintails come through the day after season. That was like 40 birds. And now I felt like that was relatively common. I'd see birds down on the creek. I'd see birds in the pond behind the house. Now we just don't have it, and I have felt like the numbers are way lower than even what we're being told, but I'm not around it enough to truly say.
Right. Now, as far as the numbers that they're telling us, is it staying? Because I'm not as familiar with the duck hunting side and how the trends are as far as the ducks that they're seeing migrating. But it does it show that it's staying consistent or is it a
No,
drop?
I think we're on like a temporary uptick right now, but I think overall, the projections across the board are showing much lower. And I know our friends at like Delta, even in their hatching programs, they're having more success. But there's just a bird population issue. And I know last year, I'm sure you saw the videos with that influenza that was going through, where perfectly healthy ducks were just falling out of the sky. I don't know if you saw any of those, especially like over the Mississippi and that central flyway. They seem like they were getting decimated with just, like, large populations of birds just floating upside down.
Now, what do you think about and I saw a video that it was talking about folks when they flood their rice fields or they have flooded areas, it messes up the birds' flight patterns. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's a pretty, like, hot button topic right now, and it's funny, flooded basically, like, kinda memes in the duck hunting groups I've been seeing is like, "Oh, if I put out Milo, I'm the bad guy, but if I flood some corn, I'm just a conservationalist." And that seems to be a pretty hot button topic, and there's a lot of energy around excluding kind of the practice of, hunting these flooded fields. I don't know about you. I have really never understood on migratory game birds, like, what the difference between hunting a Milo field is and planting Milo for hunting. Like, how does that actually legally get differentiated? Do you know? Because I have no clue.
I don't know, and to be honest with you, I don't understand a lot of it, and I think it goes uh, kind of as a whole when you look at all the laws we have in our country. There's a lot of laws that will be hypocritical to other ones. You're like, how can I do this, but I can't do this? Like, and I always go to the example of alcohol. How is alcohol legal and marijuana is not? You think about different things like that where how is it I can't hunt over Milo, but I can flood a rice field and it's perfectly okay. So for me, I don't understand it. But I do love hunting over flooded rice fields, to say the least. So I don't know. It's kind of it's a tough one.
Well, and I noticed this year, I felt like Texas Parks and Wildlife, and maybe it's been this way years past. I just haven't noticed it. The amount of baiting cases have just seemed like they've been through the roof. I follow all the little online pages and even on their website itself. They've got multiple guys hunting teal now over corn, and I've seen them post like three or four different like big breaks where they're taking in like three stringers of birds that are all limited out. I don't know. It is one of those issues where I feel like it's kind of all or none. Where I don't necessarily know that I want you to be able to go dump Milo out in your field, but I don't know what the difference between being able to go to sit in the Milo field. The weird element of baiting that I wasn't familiar with until last year is you're liable for your neighbor baiting, meaning anything that influences the birds on adjacent properties, you're responsible for having some sort of awareness on. So the example I was given by the game warden that was telling me this is a guy was hunting a fence line and there was a brush pocket and a deer feeder that just on the other side of that brush pocket, and you couldn't really see it from where he was sitting. Well, big fat white wings were coming into that deer feeder, and the guy was slaughtering them. And the game warden told him, technically, I can write the ticket for it, even though you're not baiting the birds, which I thought that was kind of weird.
That is very bizarre, and I've had a lot of instances where neighboring properties, they have specific types of fields, and you're kind of in the flight path, so you're hanging out and shooting these birds, and I would have definitely got a ticket because I would have never known that, which is a lot of the things that I get written up for because there's so many laws and so many different things that you don't know. But now that you've kind of wrapped up duck season, now what is your off season look like? Kind of starting from January all the way to the 1st of October, or I guess you could say September when dove season starts.
Yeah, right now, dog training is paramount. Cherry we got her, she was born in late July. So, oh, she's like, man, mental math is not mentaling. She's however old she is now, is 5 months, 6 months. So she's kind of at that age where I can start putting a little bit of pressure on her. And she hunted great. I mean, I was. It's a lab. It's pretty hard to screw up. They just like bringing you birds. Now we'll start kind of implementing the like nuance of it of making guns steady. I didn't do as good of a job on my previous lab of making them more gun steady because we uplanded hunted first, and I think it's really hard to go from upland back to like duck or dove, where it's like now I need you to sit completely still until the shooting's done. Versus
Right.
if you're not on this quail instantly, it's gone. So she hasn't done any upland hunting, and that's been intentional. I've been working with her. Froze a bunch of birds this year. I'm becoming a huge fan of that over bumpers. I like dogs having to use their nose more than their eyes. I think it's just more conducive, like to Kansas and stuff where they can't mark as well.
Right.
So yeah, my wife loves them right now. Our freezer's full of some ducks, doves, and a couple quail. But yeah, just kind of getting exposure to it right now. We're putting a little bit more pressure and a little bit more structure and rigidity. And honestly, I'm very happy with kind of how she's responding. I'm hoping that she's going to be ready by teal. I'd like to try to take her out and see how gun steady she is. And then the other thing is I'm changing rounds in a couple different rifles. So I love getting to re-sight in rifles that are already dead on. That's the worst.
Yeah, I can fully relate when it comes to the rifle side. I am in the baby stages of, I will say, picking out a dog. And we're trying to look for a family dog, and my daughter and my wife, they've been working on me for a while now about the dog. So we I think we've landed on the Brittany Spaniel, and the question now is, how do I kind of get that dog into a position to where now I can take it duck hunting, I can take it dove hunting. I already know that's not going to be a problem because they're pretty used to that. But it's more the stuff that they're not necessarily used to, the duck hunting, maybe even tracking some deer, different things like that. But that's kind of the next phase is where do I even begin, and who or how do I pick out the right trainers? And you've had dogs before. What's your approach to that?
I've used trainers before, but I've never truly done like the drop and leave them training. And part of it's been financial concerns, and others just been I really like to have that personal relationship with the dogs. And I've been fortunate where every time we got a puppy, I've like, all right, I got time that I can dedicate, a month here, and then we can revisit it. I think it's what's really important in picking a dog, and I'm writing an article about this, hopefully for Retriever Journal, but it's talking about building like trust in your dog. Where I've seen some great hunting dogs, but the guy can't open up the door and let the dog out his front yard because it may be gone. but the dog will mind well in the field. It'll retrieve, it'll have all those basic commands. It'll hold. It'll do that type of stuff well, but it won't be in situations that it's not used to and handle them well. And I think that's one of the funny things with my wife's actually probably better at this than I am. Is let's just take the dogs. Run into the hardware store. I got to grab something. Bring the dog. Let it be around people. It's the worst thing. Is like having a dog that's like, "Ah, it wants to jump on people. I got to be careful who it's around. And it's bring it. We're gonna start that young and with like with Cherry, she didn't get as intense. So Cricket, our Vizsla, she's actually my wife has her registered as a service dog. And when she was had her getting her master's in Washington D.C., she brought her with her. So that dog, when she was like 9 months old, flew on my wife's lap back from Washington D.C. for me to grab her straight from the airport and take her to Kansas and upland hunt. And I'm like, man, that there is only a handful of dogs that can say they've done that in America. They were a phony service dog on a United Airlines flight all the way to a field in Kansas in like 48 hours. But, yeah, I just think exposing it, like, really early, and it sucks sometimes when you have a puppy that pees on the floor in a store where it's like, "Ah, it's embarrassing, gotta clean it up." But I really think that, like, building that foundation early that it's like, "Hey, we have a give and a take, we're gonna work together." And it's funny, I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot more patient. Weirdly, I've gone the inverse direction, and especially with the dogs where it's like, "Nah, it's part of the process." And I used to just have so much anxiety when I worked with other people's dogs or my own dogs where it's like, if things weren't going perfect, it's like, "That's it," is this dog just not gonna hunt? And I've seen it one time where I've had a dog that's like, "This just isn't your thing."
Yeah, I have a lot of circumstances where, and it's more other people's dogs where I go duck hunting and I'm going, maybe this
Mm.
isn't your thing, because you see it so many times where they're screaming at the dog, they're whistling, they're I mean doing everything. Thankfully we have shot collars now, noises that come from them, so you don't have to be as aggressive when it comes to getting the dog back. But there's certain approaches you can take to ensure that, hey, you're not running off. But now, the one of the things that I was always interested in when I was younger, I went to this guy's. He was a doctor. My mom was friends with him, and they would run the dog trials for all the different, I'll call it Labrador type activities. And the event that was interesting to me was they would place the ducks in certain areas, and the owners had to basically communicate with the dogs to ultimately find where that animal is. And then in some cases, they could only get to a certain area and then they had to use their noses to go find the animal. But I've always been curious, how do you even get to your dog to that point, and where do you even begin to start working with them with stuff like that?
Well, it's certain the hand gestures. So the big thing that it's funny. Some people are like, I swear my dog speaks English. Your dog doesn't speak English. It just understands patterns, and that's kind of the first step. Every dog training book, like it's the patterns. So when you're doing commands like we do, this is sit, stay, heel is like your hand like that. There's a few different little hand motions we generate, and so like right now with Cherry, that's actually it's funny. We didn't even talk about this, but man, good tee up. That's one of the things I'm working on is she starts from place, which is like a duck blind, dog duck blind. I allow her to come forward, and then we're going to push to the left and the right. And so, one of the ways that kind of you make it instinctual is you naturally put the bird on the right while you're saying that command. She wins the bird, put the bird upwind from her. She wins it naturally, wants to go that way anyway. And then it's, hey, get some positive affirmation. Now we're going to put the bird the other direction. You're not going to have the win this instance. And sometimes let them see you do it so they naturally want to do it. And it's just like, it's a very positive experience. And I used to think that was very corny and cliche, but I really do think that positive reinforcements, especially with puppies before they're like a dog, is just huge. You're talking about the yelling and screaming. The best compliment I've ever got was my brother Sean, that's in between Chris and I, where he went pheasant hunting with us, and we got out on the first pass, and he looks at us and goes, "God," and he's upland hunted before. He's like, "Y'all are so quiet with y'all stuff. That means we're
Yeah,
doing something right."
you're definitely doing something right, and I think that other people, that just rubs off on them. That I don't know what it is, and I know dogs. I don't think their ears are that terrible, so I don't see. I don't think the volume needs to be that loud. But to your point, I think how you are with your animal and those gestures that you use and how they're reinforced after those gestures, when they obey them, can go a long way. And for me, and that's what I'm trying to kind of collect is what is the best approach for me with my animal, because it's obviously going to be a family dog first, and that's the area where it's going to probably sleep in my daughter's bed, my son's bed, and probably end up in our bed at some point. But I also want it to do certain things that, we go dove hunting every year. We do a lot of deer hunting, do a lot of fishing, and I do see the videos where, they're on the boat, they're fishing, they have the dog with them, and for me, that's kind of an enjoyable experience. So I watch stuff like that, and I tend to forget about the peeing on the floors, the throwing up on the floors, all the things that come with the animal, and that's where I've always been, I don't want another dog. It's just it's tough. When they're younger, it's tough, and then you go through like a 8-year period where it's awesome, and then it starts to decline, and then now you're kind of back to where you were before.
Y it
So
it is, and it's funny you talk about, like, the boat stuff, and, like, I agree with you, man, that was, like, one of my favorite moments is when we had the little solo skiff is grab my dog and we'd go fish together, and he was older at the point where he'd lay at the front end, he'd give me some approval on a good redfish, and then go back to sleep.
now, did you ever have issues with your dog jumping in the water?
Oh, yeah, yeah, that man.
Really?
This pup I have now is from Northwest Arkansas, and this dog, this whole weekend, we've been sub whatever temperature. I couldn't take her with me because I was literally worried about sitting out, duck hunting and her getting wet early because that dog would just swim. She was trying to break the ice off on our run this morning, to go swim. I mean, it just
Uh,
in the couch off. I'm like, come on, pup. Like,
yeah, and that's one of my other concerns because I do love the videos where the dogs are obedient and they stay in the boat and they're not really in the way. They're dogs that they don't know which way you're going one way or another, but they're not trying to jump in the water every time a fish is caught. They're not diving on the fish, so you're worried about hooks getting into them. They're
yeah.
just kind of relaxed, and I'm sure that takes time, and that's something that I always thought would be kind of cool as well. Throw the dog on the boat, me, the wife, and the dog go fishing, or the kids if they come along as well, and then having something to where the dog can hang out, but also not be too much in the way.
Well,
And that's
do you know the best advice I've ever been given is make your dog a part of it, don't make your dog the thing. And I think that's kind of what you're describing. It's like it's a part of it,
yes,
but it's not like we have our dog, so we can't do this or we need to be back by this time.
and that's really a good point because that in itself goes with anything that you do. And I look at that where, just like you said, make the dog a part of it and make it, don't make it about the dog. And, even with our kids, there's certain things that we do where people are kind of, they're a little bit shocked, but you have to allow them to make certain mistakes. You have to allow them to be responsible. And ultimately, it will benefit you because they'll kind of pave their own way. And so for that example, the dog will now be a part of it and it will know, hey, what it can and cannot do. Some of the experiences probably won't be that great because I'd hate to pull a hook out of a dog's foot or anything like that because that does not sound fun. Maybe it grabs a couple of fish. I don't know. But ultimately, just like you said, I think that's an awesome point. Let them be a part of it and don't make it about them. And it will be a much more enjoyable experience. So now, we're in the off season working with your dogs. For me, it's kind of I'm not as serious on the deer hunting side as far as off season preparation. I'm pretty lazy when it comes to stuff like that. So I my feeder will run dry for a month or so, and then I'll get it filled back up. But there's a lot of people out there that are very serious and they spend a lot of time, a lot of money in off season, especially the ones who have to plant fields, have to, have that infrastructure set up. Whereas a lot of us, once the deer season wraps, We're kind of let all the water out of the campers, make sure it doesn't freeze. And then I'll see you in 3 months when I start preparing for turkey season. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, exactly the same. I literally just got my lugger out sitting right there with the turkey season stuff. Yeah. I'll keep a camera running probably for another 2 month until the bucks start losing their antlers, just so I can see, hey, what, especially harvesting a buck this year, what maybe came through after the fact, changing that like hierarchy. And I've already been surprised. I'm sure you've seen this before. When you shoot that one dominant buck, man, it's always interesting what else comes in, and nothing else was better than the deer I shot, but a lot of like really interesting. Like I got one buck, he has no tines, but he's like 22 inches wide, just showed up out of nowhere.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
So I like doing that, running that camera still. That's about it though.
yeah, and it's always funny because we laugh about this every year. Is as soon as the season ends, it's like every buck that I've never seen before all of a sudden shows up on camera, and I don't know what that is. And I can have assumption of what that is. You know, the amount of traffic that's running through that property all throughout deer season, and then finally it closes, and then everything's quiet for a week. The deer just feel it, and they're smart. They know. So I know it has to do with more pressure than anything, but it's just always laughable. I remember last year, it was literally the day after. I mean, we were there. We were packing up to go home because the season was closed. It was on a Sunday, and I look at my phone and I've got 9 bucks in there that I've never seen before, and "Ho- how is this even possible?" And I'm like, "Well, hey, son, it's still youth season. You want to go?"
That was this year. My niece had hunted for that one particular buck I'd been telling you, and I mean, she literally from the opener in youth like October to last week, yeah, well, last week or the week before last, it was just hunting. I mean, incessantly, and it came out that my brother said they were walking up and they could see, he knew on the cellular camera that deer was there, and they had tried to hang further back and try to get her like propped up to make a shot once it was legal light, and it just didn't come together. But it was so crazy that that deer he had talked about, they'd walked up on a multiple occasions on the cellular camera, and it'd be feeding at like 5:30 when they're walking in the blind, and it'd be gone by the time they were in there. That buck on that occasion after season sat there the entire time until first light. She never got a shot, never got comfortable, but it was crazy. Chris was like, "Yeah, you could just tell that deer knew for some reason it wasn't deer season, and the same deer that ran off every time on us actually stayed that time."
That is, it's a bizarre thing to watch, and you'll never understand it until you actually go hunting and you watch it and you see it, and then you just are as confused as the rest of us. And so I get it. Now, as we transition to turkey hunting, things are changing a little bit. The hunting style changes. I know for me, when I was younger, I did a lot of turkey hunting out of the deer stand, and I would just kind of wait and hope for they'd cross my path, and then I'd take a shot at them. I rarely hit them. I was a terrible shot when I was younger, so I don't, so I rarely hit them. But then I'll say when I was probably about, I don't know, 22 or 23 was the first time I was really introduced to sitting in a kind of a brush area and then covering yourself up, putting a couple decoys out, and then starting calling. And that whole experience changed everything about me and turkey hunting. Now, what I will also say is I love hunting and killing turkeys. I can't say that I love eating them that much.
Really?
I don't, I don't know if it's more just because I don't know how to cook them. I've tried, pan frying them, cooking them different ways, but it's never really turned out to where I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
I'll send you a recipe. My little like go to is I do the turkey breast and you marinate in pickle juice and do like a Chick-fil-A sandwich with it. That's a household favorite in the Casa house.
See that sounds enjoyable. Now, when I'm out there, and this is where it's hard for me because I know I'm not a great cook when it comes to turkeys, and I'm not gonna enjoy the meat. So I struggle with shooting them. And so what I find myself doing is more, who can I bring that would enjoy the experience and also enjoy the meat? because if I can't really eat it, I'm not in the business of just shooting something to shoot it. So that part is a struggle to me.
Yeah,
But
that's totally respectable. That's a great position. I don't enjoy it, but let me get somebody else involved with it.
yeah, and then because I love the hunting part. I mean, when I'm calling them, and I've gotten pretty good with the slate over the last couple of years. I tried the mouth calls, and I was okay, but it didn't sound very realistic. And so the slate, I've always had much more success with that. But watching the birds come in and strutting, and especially when you get a couple of gobblers that are fired up, and they're doing their strut back and forth, and they're coming in hot and bothered. It is an experience that you can't explain, because it's like the anxiety builds as they're getting closer and closer, and now you're preparing for this shot. So for me, the whole experience is amazing. I just got to figure out how to cook the meat. So
No, that's an easy salute. That's an easy problem though.
yeah. Where are you hunting at as far as turkey season? Uh, Same property?
Yeah, similar areas. I got a few different areas I'll go hit. My big thing is I'm gonna bring them back this year. I haven't been hunting over decoys. I have a pretty good little streak going on some good gobblers these last couple years, and now I want to try to get my wife one. And I gave away. I had a couple decoys that just kind of deteriorated over time, and so I had stopped using them entirely by myself. And it was getting to the point where I was calling some really nice birds and just consistently, like you're saying, that slate plate. Oh man, I can't write worth a crap, but I can hit that slate plate just perfect.
Oh yeah. And,
Um,
and
Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna ask you. So you're taking your wife to try to get her, is it first bird? I'm assuming.
She shot at a bird last year.
Okay.
You familiar with those that number 9 tungsten turkey load?
Yes, I am.
I did not preface with her how bad that hurts, and that's my bad. It's 3-inch, 12 gauge. I thought it was kind of better that it just happened. And she had seen me shoot a bird with it before, and she jerked pretty bad because it's pretty mean. We're gonna get her something a little more friendly this year. There's her 20 gauge she shoots. We're gonna get her something a little bit. I was actually just talking to my brother. There's some two and three quarters. That's still the tungsten, but it's not as much behind it in a 20. But yeah, I definitely could tell she anticipated that recoil a little much and missed a little wide right. But it's funny, she's very competitive about it. The first time we ever took her, I told her it's kind of hit or miss with, there may be birds there may not be. That we don't have consistent roosting spots on our property. We're always adjacent to them, so it's, if the bird's in the area and hears and wants to play. And I told her, I was like, if they start gobbling a bunch and then they stop, get ready. Like that's when it's about to happen. And I don't think she believed how true that really is. And that bird had stopped gobbling for like 5 minutes, and next thing I know, it's like face to face with her, just sitting there, and she's whispering to me, "Should I shoot it?" I'm like, "Mm-hmm, mm-hmm," trying to communicate, and the turkey's just staring at this bush with a shotgun pointed at it. And she's done well though. She every year she's gotten closer, and that's what I told her. Now this is year 3. You got it.
Yeah, and it's gonna come. I mean, and that's what I would love to. And when me, you, and the guys from Cast and Blast were talking, and we were talking about an episode with the wives, I would love to really pick their brain on what they're thinking in those moments. And it's almost like especially if you have never hunted, there's a lot of seeking approval when it comes to looking at your husband or looking at someone else who's been doing it for a while. So they're almost just like you said. Okay, can I shoot now? You're like, well, if they get any closer,
Yeah.
they're going to be in the blind with us. So now would be a good time to probably shoot. And so, with my wife as well, there's certain things where it's kind of like, can I do this? And some of it is pretty common sense, but you don't think about it when you've done something for so long, and someone who hasn't done it, what their thought process is in that moment. And so that's something that me and you are definitely, once I can figure out how to put another mic in here and open it up a little bit, to definitely get the wives on and talk about when they're experiencing in those moments, and how it is interacting with us, because I'm sure there's some anxiousness that we cause when we're like, what are you doing? Why, I know for me, I try to be as gentle as possible, especially with hunting, because the moment you start getting frantic, it's over. Everything rubs off on the person you're hunting with. So I know by experience how that goes. So that will be another episode in itself, just
For
talking
sure.
with the wives and how those hunters go about those experiences and what they're thinking in the moments, because it's a benefit to us too, because it's like, hey, I hate when you do this, because all it does is make me nervous. And then someone else hears this and goes, oh man, I had no idea, but I'm making this so much harder than it needs to be.
Well, and think about turkey hunting. I mean, with like deer hunting, there's a logical reality. Pig hunting's the same way. Dove hunting, all these are the same way. You don't want your presence known by the animal. So there's a natural level of disconnect that you have where we can make this happen undetected, ideally, right? Turkey hunting's the exact opposite, especially if you're doing it the right way with a shotgun and decoys and calls, and you're not just looking down big senderos, like you're tucked off in the brush. You have a reality that this animal is intentionally coming to you, and that's something that, like, I catch myself. You talk about taking people hunting for the first time. I have a hard time categorizing in my brain that this is going to look a whole lot different, that we're not going to be able to communicate in the moment. And even like one of the things I kind of caught myself after that, I didn't do a good job communicating what a male turkey looks like. I told her she could only shoot a gobbler. And it's funny, you hear that, and beard, redhead, big fan, logical. She's never seen a turkey strut before. So she didn't know what the hell she was looking at. And it had that funny moment of like, oh, yeah, like that. If you've never seen this before, it looks pretty weird. And this animal is directly coming to you, not an instance of like you're catching it like a passive observational standpoint.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't want to send you to jail right now, but have you ever draw down on a strutting hen that had a beard?
We can shoot bearded hens in our county.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you still can, but for the longest time you could.
Oh, well,
And
that was never the case where I hunted.
yeah, no, it was always the thing that like the guys that I hunted with always were like, man, if you see one, you got to get one. That's pretty rare. No, you're allowed to shoot beardeds. I don't know if you still can. I've seen one in my lifetime, I think, and it was the weirdest thing where she was doing the raspy gobble where they do the like they're still doing that, but they
Yeah.
would gobble with it. Oh, and it was just I didn't know what I was listening to. When she came in, like almost didn't believe it. Like, "Man, did that doze off? What's going on?" What about you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's been, uh, especially when I was younger, and we weren't when I went hunting when I was younger, there wasn't a lot of teaching going on. Like when I think about when me and my kids or my wife sit in the blind, I'm explaining things to great detail. And I think back in when I was younger, and I remember a lot of, I'll call it, uh, what's a good word for it? Just really where I was not prepared to make certain decisions, and it was a disaster, and that was one of them where I was in the blind with my granny, and she had no clue. She was just sitting there because we're, wanted to talk and have fun and enjoy ourselves, and all of a sudden a bearded hen starts strutting in, and I'm granny, get my gun, get my gun. She's like, why? And I'm like, there's a gobbler coming right there, and she's okay. What does it look like? And I'm like, it looks like that. So she has no clue. I'm just assuming at this point, and then lo and behold, one of the turkeys that I do hit is this bearded hen. And I'm sitting there going, I go down there, I'm all excited because this was one of the first times I got to sit by myself. Not really, but I'm with my granny. And we walk up on it, and oh my goodness, this is not a gobbler. And it took me a little bit because I was not familiar with spurs. I was not familiar with the things that only gobblers have. And I'm towering over this hen, all excited. And it wasn't until my grandpa pulled up and he picked up the bird and he was like, "What in the world are y'all doing?" And
That's a
so
letdown, man.
that's the experiences I got to where I got to learn from the negative experiences that I had to where now you kind of teach that. And that's kind of the goal for everyone with as we talk about certain things is, hey, you're going to make mistakes and there's nothing wrong with it. And you just better hope that some of those make the mistakes you make aren't as detrimental as some, just like we were talking about the guy who went hunting in the Sam Houston National Forest, shoots this massive stag, and now that gets taken away, his gun or his bow gets taken away, and he thought that he was all good. So little things like that where you don't fully understand it. So I think that's why I over explain things when it comes to hunting and when we're in the blind together. I do find myself doing that. How about you?
Well, I was having this exact conversation with my niece. We were talking about youth hunting, and she was asking about like, how often would people go with you? And I'd hunt with my brothers a lot, and I was like, well, they wouldn't go. They couldn't shoot anything. And it was so funny that youth weekend, from like 12, 13 on, I'd grab my 222 and just go sit in the stand by myself and just be like, have no idea, never, had no clue what was going on. We have antler restrictions. I really couldn't tell you what a legal buck looked like, but it was just like, oh, go and you'll figure it out. And now it's so funny 'cause she's talking about her dad, my brother, that would go with me from time to time, sitting with her every day during youth season trying to get this particular buck. And she's like, man, I just can't believe he's done it for all these years. And I was like, no, your dad didn't go sit with me. He would let me go sit or he'd take me, but he had other stuff to go do. It was youth. He didn't care. I find that's so true that like there is a really hard thing about like being involved in wildlife. Everything is so hyper pressured, and I still feel this till today. I went duck hunting Saturday, just a local place. I spooked a bunch of birds leaving, kind of knew where they were, and it was funny. My wife heard me whine about it for like 2 hours. I was like, I just went and sat for 3 hours. And I didn't see anything. And the one birds that were there, I didn't, I didn't want to walk the extra area. So I just drove through. And of course, that's where all the birds were. And I kind
Oh
of
my gosh.
I made the plan Sunday. I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. They were there at this time. I think these birds are pretty well patterned. I was super patient, went up, shot my nice gadwall. I was able to kind of sit back and pick my duck. I think the art of jump shooting ducks is so underappreciated. And I know every real duck hunter hears that and just like said, ugh. But I love jump shooting ducks. And I think it's like, especially too, like when you can get back, watch them and kind of make a play on them, not just like, oh, there's birds. But it was so funny where I instantly kind of went back to that youth experience of like, I learned another thing. Like it sucked and I made the wrong choice, but that is so much of wildlife. It's kind of flying by the seat of your pants and like, all right, how do I put myself back in an opportunity to make something else happen? Because plan A almost never works. And that is so much of wildlife.
Oh, it is 100%. And it's funny because most people who go out, they're just getting the basics of the rules and the guidelines. Now, as me telling you that story about that mistake and obviously in that in the county that I was in, that was not a legal bird to shoot. So that was a mistake that could have been pretty detrimental to me if let's just say a game warden was happened to walk up at that moment and find that bird, and then there goes my gun, and I don't even understand. You know, for me, I'm looking at it as I'm a kid. I didn't understand. Well, this is where the guidance of the parents, the guidance of friends, family, whatever it may be, to kind of help support you in that. Now, for you, has there ever been a moment where you have that mistake that could have been really detrimental to, I'll call it.
Allegedly, a hen may have been harvested my first year in Kansas. Allegedly, what I'll say was funny, or it's not funny. I mean, it's a screw up. But what I'll say about the
Right.
moment was, I like the group I hunt with, where nobody gave me like they gave me a hard time for it, but nobody
Right.
was like hypercritical about it. The one thing I heard, and I really respect it, is somebody looked at me and goes, "You better pick up that bird and eat it." And I looked at it and it was funny. I was like, yeah, and I'd already kind of planned like You know, I'm gonna own it. And if I face a game warden, I'm gonna say, hey, you know, I could have left this in the field. You would never know. I would never be held accountable. I didn't want it to go to waste. We have one hen out of however many roosters. It was an honest screw up. Um, what I'll say is this: I like the group I hunt with for that. That it is more important ethically that you don't waste that meat. That you make right by the situation that you may have screwed up on, more so than it is of like, well, let's not get caught and have them go through our stuff because we are legal guys. I mean, that's our goal and
Right.
ambition. But yeah, I mean, it was a deal. Bird came up in the cattails. I was excited. I just wanted to kill a pheasant. I saw the rooster. I shot, and I saw the bird behind him go down. And went, uh oh, like please be another rooster. But lesson learned, like I said. And you know what? I know some other guys I've hunted with have made similar mistakes, and some have been hunting for a while where honest screw up, a hen will come up with a big tail, and every one of them still the same way. They'll throw it in their bird bag, they'll clean it, and they'll keep it in the cooler, and they'll own it.
Hey, and that's there's different layers to that. So there's the ethical layer of, hey, I made a mistake, but I'm still going to get the meat and just like you said, do right by this animal. I'm going to eat it. I'm not just going to leave it to rot and give to the buzzards and everything else that's in the woods. Now, there's another layer. This is like the over the top when it comes to
It's like
morals
taxi
and
cab.
ethics
It's like taxi cab admissions over here, man.
of morals and ethics. Let's say you're hunting and you're at the age that you're at now, and you shoot an animal not knowingly until you get up to it, and it is an illegal animal. Are you staying consistent with, hey, I'm gonna, I definitely made a mistake. I'm gonna skin it out, get the meat, and then that's it. That be that. Or are you going to go that extra step and go, I made a mistake. I need to let the local game warden know, and then let it go from there. Which way you going?
Oh man, yeah, I will gladly eat a mistake. I will gladly skin a mistake, and if I am confronted with it, I will absolutely own it, not try to explain it away. I don't know if I'm turning myself in. That Fifth Amendment's very important to me. I know some guys that have like turned themselves in where a guy shot a buck, mature buck, was just under the antler restriction in our county, which is 13 inches, and I mean just under mature great deer, just under turned himself in, and I respect that. I commend that. I don't know if I could do the same. What about you?
I I am 100% eating that mistake.
Just
I am
destroying the evidence, if you will.
I am not going to the local authorities because and it's not because like deep down, yes, you made a mistake, but it's not like where you're really truly doing something unlawful in the eyes of God, if you will. So yes, you understand the conservation aspect of it and why they have these rules and regulations, but you made a mistake and that's it. I don't think it really needs to go further than that. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she'll be the one to turn herself in and go to, all the guns be taken. No, I think she would probably be more on the, hey, we're gonna eat this mistake. But
You
I could
click on her.
definitely.
You see her Facebook story. And it's just a picture of you. No.
Those are the ones who crack me up when you see those moments where you they know they did something illegal and knowingly, and then they still post it all over Facebook. This used to be a big problem in Port Lavaca with the sandhill cranes, because I think it was like season wasn't the opening and closing of the season was determined based on what side of I-35 you were on, or whatever that road was. So Everett would used to always say that because we'd have sandhill cranes. Sorry, bud, we're on the wrong side of I-35 or whatever it was. But he always had that saying. But there was people on the other side of the fence that would light them up, and then they'd go to Facebook and show all the sandhill cranes that they have, not knowing that in that area, the game warden pretty much in a roundabout way follows everyone. And so he could clearly tell based on the uh, just the background where the people were at, and he knew exactly. And so then he's staked out, and then the next kind of worked itself out. But knowingly versus unknowingly, two different things. But also to your point, ethically speaking, at least take the meat and own your mistake. And if a game warden walks up, hey, open and honest. Hey, I did. I know that's an illegal animal. I made a mistake, and you know, I'm an honest person when it comes to that.
You know
Now,
the coolest on that is my on my elk hunt. We were talking about elk hunting a couple weeks ago. We had a guy that we didn't know him, but he shot a pretty nice bull and was packing it out on the same trailhead we were on. And on elk, you have to leave like the genitalia attached as proof. You can't like skin it off, and it's a big ticket if you don't. And he openly this he made contact with the park ranger, and he had stopped talking to a super nice game warden park ranger, whatever his title was. He went up to while he had the antlers on, said went up to the park ranger and said, "Hey, I messed up on this. I was instructed on it after the fact by somebody when I was leaving. I'd like to let you know what happened." And you talk about kind of that middle ground of if that guy had got back to the campsite or the site, loaded up his elk and headed home to Texas, that's not that big of a deal. But being forward about it, I respect the hell out of that. Where he said went up, he's gonna get stopped. He realized it. Why not get the bonus points of going up and saying, "Hey, I was instructed by a different hunter that this is law. I've looked it up since. I realized that is the law. I didn't follow this. I shot this one bull. I can take you to the gut pile. I can take you to all the meat. I can take you to this. Let me know if there's anything else I can do, and I apologize that I messed up on it."
and in that circumstance, it's a little bit different because the law is it's one of those things where it's not normal for if you're from different states.
Hmm.
So if you're not used to it, that can definitely happen. Now, this kind of goes without saying. Hey, you definitely want to read up on the laws before you go hunting in different areas because the laws do change from state to state, and you want to make sure that you understand everything fully. But in the circumstance of that, hey, I'm not familiar with this. I thought I was read up on the laws, but I did make a mistake, and I want to be forthcoming of, hey, I did not follow this. So what do we do next? So I could see fully where I would do the same thing. I wouldn't try to go, oh crap, I'm going to try to make it back to Texas with it because I will be the one that stopped in.
Always.
Absolutely. So it wouldn't matter one way or another. So now making it past turkey season, is there any other preparation you're doing to get ready for deer season? Do you feed protein year round, or is there
No,
anything like that?
I don't want to make my deer too good for my neighbors, so I don't feed protein. No. I probably will do a good food plot this year. I did one 2 years ago, and I thought it made a massive impact. And so I've got a perfect stretch that's cross fence where the cows can't get to. Probably I'll start that if we have a wet August, probably about that time. But yeah, mostly just kind of doing field reconnaissance, keeping an eye out on the place. And the other thing is Predator Smackdown. That's going to get started real soon. I'm excited on that. Predator management, I think, is an aspect most people with deer hunting kind of look past. And any opportunity to shoot a couple coyotes, always a good thing in my book.
And the other thing is what I'm noticing a lot more of now is the hogs, and I truly identify them as a predator when it
Hmm.
comes to certain things because we're not seeing the fawns that we used to see before, but the hog population has it's unreal, and I don't. It's hard to say what the right steps are to do in order to regulate the population and how you go about that. I try to shoot as many as I can, and it doesn't seem like it puts a dent in them at all. So I don't know that's what I'm struggling with because especially at my stand, once the hogs come and once they've kind of congregated to a certain area, the deer just they don't like being in the same spot as the hogs. And I don't know if you kind of see
Hmm.
similar aspects to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think generally it's just like movement, and your big bucks are just super aware. Where it could be you walking through, it could be at javelina. Unless there's a hot doe in the area, they're typically kinda off put by any of that stuff. Yeah, we the hog problem's bad, and what's weird about mine is they're here, but they are not patterned at all. I don't know if I need to set my feeder a little bit differently where it starts going off at night maybe, But I know that with the thermal in these next couple nights where I could shoot a pig and just kind of let it hang overnight and dry out a little
Right.
bit. That's definitely on the horizon. I got the thermal charging right now, actually.
Now, so as far as the hogs, there's always been, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there used to be a poison that they had
Mm-mm.
where it would kill the hogs, because the hogs are not just detrimental to the hunting areas. They're starting to overflow into more the urban communities, and a lot of the neighborhoods that kind of push outward towards the country area. The hogs will come in and they love the flower beds, and they will tear up the flower beds. And so I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was something that they did a while back, and it was like a poison that you put out. The hogs would come in and eat it, and then they would go off and die. So it was kind of like rat poison, if you will, for hogs. The problem though is it was killing birds too. So immediately it was taken off the shelf and banned. But I always go back to, if there was something, because the hog population is it's truly, I think, getting worse year over year. You see it everywhere, and I'm grateful that a lot of people can get in helicopters and go shoot as many as possible. I think that's awesome. But in like our areas where you can only, I mean, we shoot probably 20 hogs, 20, 30 hogs a year, and it doesn't seem like it does anything. So having that extra, I'll call it a poison, if you will, to get some of that population out of there. Now, from a morals and ethics standpoint, where would you stand on that?
That sounds like a risky proposition. I like it. I like it in an ideal world of like limiting that population, at least to a small extent. I do think you run a real fine line of what else is going to stumble across that bait, and especially I'm a quail guy, so anything that hurts the birds, I got to fight against. I, it is always such a weird proposition because I honestly, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way. If you could snap your fingers tomorrow, and make all the hogs go away, I don't think either of us would choose that alternative reality.
Absolutely not. And I think that's the only thing that really makes it to where it's nice to have hogs, because when you're in those boring hunts and the hogs come out, you're like, here we
Well,
go. Yeah, I'm about to shoot one of these or as many as I can. So I do get that, where they can change a boring hunt into an exciting hunt very quickly. And it's really good practice for people who are just getting out there, first hunters, second hunters, whatever. It's always a perfect opportunity to really learn, and I always use them as the example. So that's always super helpful. So now summertime, I don't know about you, but the only thing I do at the deer lease is enjoy the river.
oh
What
yeah.
about you?
Yeah, no, that's it, man. Just kind of enjoying it because it is funny that like how much of a grind deer season really ends up being when you're getting up consistently and you're sitting. It is kind of nice. always tell my wife that like we especially we're a one buck county and I don't really hunt much outside of out of here. So it's like once you get your deer, you're kind of like, or if you get your deer, I guess you're like, oh, like I guess to just enjoy December and Christmas. What's this? But yeah, I don't know about you. I'm excited to go chase some redfish. I haven't been fishing in a while, and it's killing me.
Oh man, me and my wife were just talking about that. We're gonna be kid free this weekend, and Saturday doesn't look great. Sunday looks awesome. But then also we haven't been to church in 2 weeks. So we're kind of at that rock in the hard place of, uh do
So
we go to church or we watch it online on the water?
it's
You
real
know,
tough only having 24 hours in a day, man.
it is tough, and it sucks because you have those periods where the fish are biting at this moment. So I need to be out there, and I need to be in this area. So I've got this amount to drive, and there's all these different things that you have to go, and there's only so many hours, and the time flies
W-
when
w-
you're on
When
the water.
when because we were a little behind the scenes, we were planning on being cast and blast, and some scheduling conflicts came up. When I saw my Saturday opened up, and my wife already knew I was committed to something, I was instantly looking at like I could go down and fish, and like you said, I saw the same thing you did. We're like, conditions just It's not that great, I'll save it for another weekend, but yeah, I instantly went to, "Let's go see if we can find some redfish." I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to the springtime, water warming up, getting back to where I can start wading in shorts. And I am I like wading in the wintertime, and I like the big trout. I like that the fish are fat and happy. It's something about getting out there springtime where they still have some weight on them, and I don't have to wear waders. So I'm looking forward to that.
There's just an
So
energy seasonally that, like, it feels so lethargic as, like, I don't know, I feel that way. In the summer, I have that, like, "We gotta hit it hard because it's gonna get hot. Let's go have fun now."
I feel like after, and it's funny because after deer season, there's like these couple of months of, it almost seems like there's just nothing. So like January, you wrap up duck season, and then February, you go fishing. Hopefully the conditions are good. We do have the fishing show coming up in mid February, so we're working. So we're getting ready for that, and then after the fishing show, you got about another month, and then turkey season starts, which I can only go so many times down there because
Yeah.
I probably got two really good weekends for turkey season, and then after that, man, it's summertime fishing, and that's what we're hammering out. So, James, it has been a pleasure again, and we have, like I said, fishing show is coming up. I think it starts the weekend of, or week of February 18th. So there, I can't wait for that. I've been going for probably 10 plus years now. I can't wait to see some of the new products that are coming there. I like to visit with all the vendors. So that's going to be really exciting coming up. And I don't know, maybe we can come up with a podcast or something live at the fishing show, but we'll see
Make it
what we can
happen.
come up with on that. Next week we got Wayne Davis, so I'm definitely excited about that. Wayne is one of those, another one that's been a part of the magazine for a while. And if you don't know Wayne Davis, then you definitely got your head in the sand somewhere. So looking forward to that conversation next week. All right. Thanks, everyone.